everyone. Wayne Motts, the President Emeritus and Historian at the Gettysburg Foundation, for a very special weekend here at the Eisenhower National Historic Site with Dan Vermiglia from the Eisenhower National Historic Site. Dan, you got activity everywhere. Everybody's going around us. What's going on out here at Eisenhower?
This is our 2024 World War II weekend. We're having a great day here at Eisenhower National Historic Site, here at General Eisenhower's historic Gettysburg Farm. Behind me is a field full of living history volunteers reenacting and portraying units, American Allied home front groups from the Second World War, all providing impressions and stories of the people and events of 1944 as we commemorate 80 years ago. Our event this year is called 1944 The Great Crusade. We've had speakers, guest speakers like Dr. John McManus, Dr. Sarah Perry Myers. Last night we had a wonderful program with Henry Sledge, son of famed World War II Marine Eugene Sledge. A lot of great speakers on site, a lot of great living history. Kids activities, kids can pick up a booklet and do activities in the living history camp, earn stars. When they get 5 stars, just like Ike, they go and get a World War II dog tag with their name on it.
Oh, wow.
So house tours, World War II vets. We've had 6 World War II veterans come and visit us today. So a lot of great stuff going on.
6 World War II veterans have been out here today. And what's like their ages, Dan? Do we know?
One gentleman I spoke with earlier named George is 102 years old, and he was still getting around just fine.
102 years old.
Yes,
when I'm 102, I hope I can be able to get myself out.
Yes,
wow, what amazing. I guess if you survive what these men survived out there, you've got to think about that. Wow, that's tremendous. Well, you've got such a great outdoor activity here that's also inside the Eisenhower home, right? I mean, we're still doing tours, everything.
Doing tours of the Eisenhower home, and it's not just here. We have indoor stuff. In the main lobby of the Gettysburg Visitor Center, there's exhibits from the United States Marine Corps Museum, United States Navy Museum.
Sure.
So a lot of great stuff going on. None of this would be possible without the support of the Gettysburg Foundation as well. A lot of foundation volunteers and staff out here helping us out. A lot of Park Service staff and volunteers. We have 20 different agencies, parks, organizations, all helping us put this event together. And that's not even counting the 300 or so living history volunteers.
Wow, this is a big event, folks. You want to stay tuned for details for next year at the Eisenhower National Historic Site. You want to look for the dates that are out here. And we can't do it without helping you and the Gettysburg National Military Park, Dan, without the viewers and without all the donors and supporters. I was stopped 3 times walking through here because people are following what we're doing. And all of those donations, of course, help to contribute to supporting Eisenhower National Historic Site and Gettysburg National Military Park. Foundation's honored to do that. We couldn't ask for anything better, and what a great day you've got out here to do it, Dan. So we're going to poke around, everyone, and we're going to ask some questions and do some interviews of some of the people that are set up here. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Wayne.
You bet. Hello, everyone. We're back, and I've got Dr. Jared Frederick. Jared, very good friend to Gettysburg National Military Parks and Eisenhower National Historic Site. He teaches history at Penn State, Altoona. And boy, this guy, he knows World War II, Civil War, anything you want to know, this guy knows it. And he's out here today at the World War II weekend at Eisenhower National Historic Site with his Living History Association. So, Jared, thanks for talking to us. We really appreciate it.
I'm always pleased to talk with you. Thank you.
And why don't you give us some idea as to what this is, what you're showing here?
My organization portrays the 4th Infantry Division, which was at the forefront of the Allied advance across Western Europe throughout 1944. It was an 11-month combat odyssey, is really the best way that I can describe it. A lot of viewers are probably familiar with Band of Brothers. That's a really dramatic journey that goes across the continent, and this is a journey that is no less dramatic. This is an outfit that is the first Allied troops ashore on the beaches on D-Day, June 6, 1944. They're the first Allied ground troops into Paris. A month after that, they're the first Allied ground troops to cross the German border. And then in the subsequent months, they go through this bloodbath in the Hurtgen Forest on the German-Belgian border. They get chewed up and spit out in there. And then they get reassigned for some rest and refitting. They get moved to Luxembourg. And then they're one of the divisions that's overrun at the beginning of the Battle of the Bulge while they're resting. And so it was absolutely relentless. And by the time VE Day came about in May of 1945, this was a division that suffered 250% casualties.
Wow. And you were telling me off camera that this is like the Hurricane Forest, which is what you've got set up here behind us, was like the longest battle in the history of World War II. So what did that look like?
Yeah, for the United States Army, to this very day, it's the longest battle that they've ever fought. It commenced in September 1944 and went through February 1945. And I think the best way for us to visualize it is that it's like a circular conveyor belt of death. There's one division that's sent in, they get chewed up and spit out, and then another division follows. And it happens over the course of several months. And I think an analogy that might be apt for our Civil War-minded viewers, it's kind of like a prolonged version of the Battle of the Wilderness.
In that type of terrain.
In that type of terrain,
yeah.
Incredibly wooded, hard to navigate, incredibly dark even during the daytime. The woods catch on fire, the trees are exploding. It was the wilderness on steroids is really what it was.
Wow. And you're portraying which unit? What are you setting up here? Are you setting up a particular unit for the 4th Infantry Division?
We were portraying F Company of the 22nd Regiment within the 4th Infantry Division. And we picked that specific outfit because there's an incredible memoir on the Second World War written by a young lieutenant by the name of George Wilson.
Okay.
And he wrote a book called If You Survive. You can easily find it online. And he offers a very vivid description of this type of combat, and therefore there's a lot of good source material that we can dwell upon.
All right, we just kind of moved position a little bit. It changes situational awareness, everybody. And we came over here to the setup that you have for the battle at Hurricane Forest, which you were describing. Tremendous 1944 in the fall, longest battle, sustained battle, U.S. forces in American history, basically.
Yes, and one of the really notable things about it is the tree bursts. And it was just an epic of nightmarish proportions. Because what soldiers learned how to do when trees are exploding, where's the safest spot? They learned that very quickly. And so they would actually hug the base of the trees while standing during bombardments, figuring that that was probably the safest place to go rather than lying flat on the ground. And so that is a partial recreation of what we have here behind us, because they would often take those downed tree limbs and try to make some very crude sort of protection or earthwork.
Like a hole or a foxhole?
Correct.
Or dig around?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. We're in a national park, though. We can't dig in the ground, so we have to improvise.
Okay. So we've got
correct. As best as we can do.
That's all right.
Given
That's okay.
the limitations. We don't want to dig up any Confederates that might be below the ground.
It conveys what happened here. So what you've got set up here, and then they could cover that and use it as from an aircraft for camouflage?
They would camouflage it to the best of their ability, and the lines ebbed and flowed a lot. And so one day you might have Americans occupying the foxholes. The Germans might knock them out the next day, take possession of them. The best way that I can describe it, it's a seesaw of violence.
Okay.
It's just constantly going back and forth. As such. And last year I had the opportunity to tour parts of the Hurricane battlefield with some colleagues, and to this very day it is just littered with debris. You can hardly go a few yards without kicking up something in the road that really speaks to the carnage that was inflicted there over the course of several months.
Wow. Well, you've done a great job on that, and I'm sure everybody's getting a good education, so thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So Jared, what is your particular connection? You have one, I guess.
Yes, very much so. A very personal connection. My grandfather served in this division throughout the entirety of the war, and despite the high casualties, he came out of the war without a scratch on him, as far as I can tell. But he was running field wire for the artillery back and forward between forward observers. And very appropriately, that's the activity that we have going for families who visit our station today. They get to learn about field telephones, communication. Kids get a chance to run the wire back and forth between the phones. So it's a very unique way for me to connect my family story and share that story with visitors.
Boy, that's got to be special. Now, I've got to ask you then, were you able to meet your grandfather, or was he alive while you were living? Or
unfortunately, he passed away when I was 5 years old, so I never got to have any of these conversations firsthand. but I feel as close to him as I possibly can here doing these sorts of things, as if he was living, or if I did get to have those conversations with him. So,
and you're sharing that story over and over again with everybody that's around you.
I try my utmost.
Wow, that is fantastic. And so have you done this for a long time? I mean, they've been running this event here at the Eisenhower National Historic Site for a lot of years, World War II weekend. You've been doing this for a while?
Yes, I've been doing World War II reenacting for about 15 years.
Okay.
And I've been coming here to Ike's Farm for pretty much the entirety of that time. And it's ebbed and flowed, it's grown, it's shrunk. But this is a great year that we're having. The crowds have been fantastic. People are engaged, and
the weather's cooperated, right?
Yeah, for the most part. It could be a little bit cooler. The multi-layers here.
And we should tell the viewers too, and they probably don't know Jared, but we're going to give you a plug here. We should tell the viewers, Jared's written several books. You've written on World War II, you've written a number of things. What have you written on, just to tell the folks?
I've written a number of World War II books, Dispatches of D-Day, Hang Tough, in which I co-edited the World War II correspondence of Major Dick Winters, who's one of the characters in Band of Brothers. Wrote a biography on one of his comrades in arms, the mysterious Ronald Spears. And my most recent one, perhaps the most meaningful of them, is I helped a World War II bomber pilot write his memoir as he was 98, 99 years old.
Wow.
And so helping to create a legacy project for a veteran as they're a century old has been something that's been very rewarding for me.
Well, I've been around an awful long time in the Civil War business. This is a little bit out of my element here, but I know that anytime you've got these living histories, you get people interested. You couldn't be doing a better job out here, everybody, to try to carry on that legacy here. So we just appreciate your time today, Jared.
I appreciate you stopping by.
Very much an honor to your grandfather. You're out here working on this.
Thank you.
So I appreciate it. So thanks. We moved just a little bit. We came over here, and this is a friend of mine. So full disclosure, and I didn't know he was here, and he's been here a lot of years, he tells me. This is Mark Troup, and Mark is a licensed guide at the Gettysburg National Military Park, 34 years. I'm 36, so I'm just a little ahead of you, but not much. Not much ahead of you.
Not much, but
Mark is doing a combat engineering battalion.
Correct.
And Mark, you told me how many years you've been out here doing this?
Been doing this 16 years.
16 years.
I started with one pup tent and one mine, and it's grown slightly.
And this is all your collection?
This is all my collection here, and it's all to interpret what my dad did in the 12th Engineer Battalion, World War II.
So that's what we want to know. Your personal connection to this is your father was
Correct.
In this battalion.
This battalion
during the Second World War.
Trained with it, was in his entire time in combat. He was with this unit, was a squad leader, led guys, fought through Normandy, northern France, Central Europe, and then was wounded in February of
1945. So let me ask you this, for the purpose of our viewers here, what does a combat engineering battalion do in the Second World War?
The Second War, each division had a combat engineer battalion attached to it. 15,000 guys in the division, 600 men in the engineer battalion.
Okay.
They're spread out to do housekeeping duties. It could be as simple as road repair. More often than not, it was identifying enemy mines, removing and marking those enemy mines, and then during the Battle of the Bulge, during the breakthrough, they were on the defensive. They're putting out U.S. anti-tank and anti-personnel mines to stop the Germans from coming through.
And are they building bridges? Or are they doing
They're building
things
bridges. They are building bridges. They're assisting bridges. They're, as they did in the Civil War, they're corduroying roads with logs right next to each other so heavy equipment can get through the muddy roads in the Arctic forest. Anything. There was a number of times they were told to put down their shovels and pick up the rifles and replace the infantry on the line.
Because this is why we call it a combat engineering battalion. This is an engineering battalion that's in combat in the Second World War.
In the Army's wisdom,
yeah,
they were considered service troops, so they did not get combat pay. The battalion had 50% casualties, 10% were killed.
Jeez.
Dad was
and they didn't get hazard duty. They got no combat pay.
No combat pay.
Now, your father was, you said, wounded in action. When did he go? Did he land? Was it D-Day, after D-Day?
They landed D-Day plus 28.
D-Day plus 28. Okay.
They landed on Utah Beach. First combat was at Le Hay-de-Poix and into Brittany. Big part of capturing the German fortress at Brest out on the Brittany Peninsula.
So the 8th Division, where in Germany, where is that at when it lands in Normandy?
When it lands in Normandy,
Yeah.
it first went over to Brest,
Okay.
then went back into Luxembourg,
Okay.
went into the Hürtgen Forest, and then Cologne, Germany, pushed through, crossed the Rhine at Bonn, joined the British Army, and went up and actually liberated a prison or a concentration camp in northern Germany, and ended up on the Baltic Sea.
Now, when your father was wounded, you said February 1945. Did he go back into action, or was he taken out of action?
He was taken out of action. He was released from the hospital May 10th.
May 10th.
May 10, right after D-Day.
Yeah.
But he did go back to his unit, and then in letters home, they went deer hunting.
Wow. Yeah. Because they
So the
finally had some
Pennsylvania
time to
boys-
do. They had safe duty. that they
Pennsylvania
had
boys went back to what
for the
they're
combat
doing.
engineering
Yeah.
unit. Well, why don't you show us some of these things?
Absolutely,
Mark,
absolutely.
and just pick what you like,
Most
or what you
people
want to convey.
know about German bouncing Betty. It is a German
Type of
bounding
mine.
mine, and this is inert, but it's live weight.
Wow, this is what a bouncing. I don't think I've ever. This is what a bouncing Betty German landmine in World War II was. This is what it looked like.
Yep.
Wow.
300 ball bearings. You step on it.
Put your. If you step on this, is buried under the ground. Okay.
You step on it, about 15 pounds are enough to detonate this.
And there's
It's a
300 ball bearings. You said in here.
300 ball bearings. It is a 2-stage detonation.
Oh.
Buried in the ground, your initial step lights a small charge that lifts this can out of the ground, and at belt height, it explodes and
geez.
spreads the 300 ball bearings in a circle.
Oh, that seems very sophisticated to me for the Second World War. To me, that
The
just
U.S.
seems,
Claymore mine
yeah,
is directional, but some of the
Right.
inspiration for that is from this
it
field
comes
of
from
ball
that.
bearings.
Yeah, because the ball bearings, the Claymore mine that was
Yeah.
used
This
very often in service
non-directional.
post World War II. Wow.
The steel one is a German Teller mine. That is an anti-tank. That
Okay.
has 12 pounds of TNT in it. That is to disable a vehicle. Any heavyweight material, that person will walk on that, no problem. Vehicle comes over, it goes off.
Yeah.
Asking Dad, I said, how close did you get to these things? He said, at the end of my bayonet.
Because he's looking for it. Okay.
You find it with the mine detector, you still have to see what did we
You
find.
got to go around it.
You got to go down, and then you've got to see what's there.
Okay.
And if you can get a safety pin back in, disarm it, you're okay.
Whoa.
About this time in the war, the units stopped running into a lot of metal mines, and they started running into mines that the Germans were making out of wood.
So the mine detector can't find
Correct.
those.
Mine. This is a shoe mine. Wooden box, explosives, Bakelite, which is a plastic fuse.
Yeah.
You step on that, that releases that pin, it blows your foot off.
Wow. Wow.
The only way to find it is to probe for
Okay.
it. And then, as
And you don't know that probably till somebody hits it.
Somebody
right? Till
hits it,
somebody
they
has
look
somebody
for
has to detonate it.
Then the
Yeah.
Germans all switched to a Holtz mine, which is a giant mine.
That's as big. It's a big.
Right there. That was their wooden anti-tank.
So that's buried in the ground, and it's like the metal mine, except the mine detector won't find
Will
that.
not find. There's
Won't
not
find
enough
that.
ferrous metal into that.
Wow.
U.S. anti-tank mine, much smaller, 12
Yeah.
pounds, 6 pounds.
Now, did the Americans have wooden? Did they have stuff this sophisticated?
We had sophisticated. We did not go to wood, but our bounding mine
Okay.
was the A2.
So this would be like the version for the German bouncing Betty. This is the American
version buried in the ground. Instead of ball bearings, this comes up out of the ground, and there's a mortar shell inside of it that blows up waist height.
Jeez.
We had a blast mine.
Yeah.
Again, what I'm trying to interpret is they're
Right.
getting replacements, so they want to teach them what they've learned. So practicing with bazookas, practicing with rifle grenades, get these guys up to speed.
Yeah. And it's the 12th job as the combat engineers to find these things.
Find these
and
things,
disarm them.
disarm them, make them safe. And the last thing the German did when he sat that mine was remove the safety fuse.
Okay.
First thing you do is replace that
So,
pin.
yeah.
So it does not plunge.
If you find it.
If you find it.
If you locate it. Wow.
On the teller mine, again, this is buried underground. You find it. In theory,
Yeah.
you pull the detonator, it should be okay.
Wow.
But there's secondary fuse wells. They put anti-handling devices on it.
Yeah.
So,
So you could shut it off by.
yeah, you are. And then you're feeling if there's wires, is it a loose wire? Is it a tight wire? You're trying to assess
Wow.
what you have and what steps.
Wow.
And as a give me, I set up this little area. It's more interactive. I want people to look.
This is what it looks like when they
This is
find
what
the
it
stuff.
looks like. This
Okay.
is obviously training. This is obviously not done.
I see it, but you got them in the ground.
But
Yeah.
then I also put nails
Yeah.
for ones that are a little more difficult
Yeah.
to find.
Yeah.
So this is what they'd be looking for. Most folks are walking around in here looking at things.
And you're down on your hands and knees, or you've got a metal,
Yeah.
you've got a mine detector that you're sweeping across the.
And then you're looking for tripwires.
Yeah. Wow.
Americans love souvenirs. Germans would wire
Yeah.
apparent souvenirs. So I picked this up.
It's attached to a wire, blows up.
I picked it up and I just set off another
Yeah.
charge.
Yeah.
So it was
Wow.
their job, their philosophy was, I'm trying to keep my buddies from getting hurt.
Yeah.
So they didn't look at it as there anything special. They're making sure their guys can get to it. And it's always fun.
So your dad is one of these men.
That is
Let's
that
turn this
gentleman
down a
right
little bit. This is your dad.
80 years ago,
Wow.
tough country boy, 140 pounds.
Yeah.
His son has the post-McDonald's body, but
Wow. Now your dad lived to be how old?
Dad
Mark.
died way too young. He died at 56 when I was 14.
Wow.
So we never talked as two adults.
Yeah.
So a lot of this, what did he do? What was it like? So
Did he talk to you?
little bit.
A little bit. Did you find men that were in his unit?
I did. I talked to
Wow.
gentlemen that was in his same platoon.
Oh, okay.
And it was great conversation. Because when he first called me, Dad's nickname in the Army was Ben. His right name was Guy.
Yeah.
But his dad was, and anyway, his nickname was
Everybody
Ben.
in the Army
Everybody
has
had
a
a
nickname.
nickname.
Everybody's got a nickname.
And when I called the gentleman,
Yeah.
he said, "Are you Ben Trout's son?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "I will talk to you. Anybody else, I wouldn't do it, but if it's Guy's son, I have to talk to you."
Wow.
He said, "We were as close as you could get."
Wow.
And I mean, he told me these stories of what they did. He said,
Yeah.
"You should have seen your
Now,
old
did
man."
you tape that, or you got this on tape?
It's sort
You
of
got in your
yeah.
head. Okay, you got to write this down.
But
so
he
we-
said, "You should have seen your old man
Yeah.
with mines."
Yeah.
And he said he was the best sergeant I had. He said he wasn't mean to us. He was taking
Wow.
care of us. So that's what we're trying to interpret.
Wow. Wow.
It's more than just guys back on bulldozers.
Sure. What a great way to honor your dad, Mark.
It's a pleasure.
I mean, there's
this
not a better
is
way to do that. I think
somewhat
your dad would have been
available. I hope
well
so.
proud. He'd have been well pleased. No
It's a
question
memorial,
about it.
but it's also when the veterans were still coming here more often when
Yeah.
we first started. One time I'm down on my hands and knees and I hear this, "You're not doing it right." This 90-year-old man comes out of the crowd, grabs a bayonet, said, "This is how you do it."
So you got it.
And we became such good
Yeah.
friends. And then the following year, he said, "Can I send you a Christmas card because all my buddies are there?"
Oh, wow.
So,
Now, in the 16 years you've been out here, have you met anyone that was in this unit?
yes, I have.
How about that?
Infantry, and I also met a gentleman who
Yeah.
was in the unit in the 60s.
Yeah.
And he looked at the sign, he said, "That was my unit." I said,
Okay.
"That was my dad's unit."
How about that?
And Tom Cerny made half of the stuff
He
we're
made
looking
this.
at. He said, "You're doing this for your dad, I'm gonna help you."
So, Mark, you've done a great job in telling the viewers here. What do you want people to walk away with when they come from here?
This-
What's the number one?
This
thing?
is the best learning World War II event I've ever attended. It's laid back. You're on Eisenhower's farm.
Yeah, it doesn't get.
I mean, that key thing, like around the
Yeah.
corner of the picture of Ike,
Yeah.
you're looking at this unit. You are at the Supreme Allied Commander's farm. You're talking about what the men did in the Great Crusade 80 years ago. So it is just a visceral connection to what happened and what we're trying to interpret.
Wow. Well, we appreciate it. That's got a lot of meaning. It's got to feel good to you to honor your dad
very good
in these things.
So,
I got to say, we've been friends an awful lot of years, and I just learned so much about you that I didn't know.
Well, try and keep it under wraps a little bit.
Yeah, but it's a good thing. You're out here, and it's a good thing. So what a wonderful.
But it's a pleasure. I'm so glad you guys have this to give us the opportunity, because if I didn't have this opportunity, I'm thinking of 10 people I never would have met.
Yeah.
And how they influenced my life. So it goes.
Well, when we get this up, you'll be able to share it too. Our supporters and our viewers have been so good to help the National Park Service. You know, that's our mission.
That is
Foundation's mission. Our mission is to help
help
the Gettysburg National Military Park and the Eisenhower National Historic Site. We're the nonprofit partner to do that. And whoops, we had some wind start
Wind
up
blowing.
Here. So anyway, Mark, thanks a lot.
It's a pleasure, brother.
We sure appreciate it, and thank you for
Thank
everything.
you for stopping by.
You
Take care.
bet. All right, everyone. Now we've come to be with the British Women's Land Army, right?
You got it.
All right, with Liz and Lauren. And guys, what the heck is the British Women's Land Army? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that in the Second World War?
Sounds good. I might be biased, but we were very vital to Great Britain in World War II.
Okay.
So the British Women's Land Army was actually started in World War I to boost food production. It was disbanded after the war, and then it was revived in June of 1939. So at that point, we're heading towards war, right?
Yeah, I mean the war starts in September, everybody. So we've got everybody new, so they're getting ready. They're getting ready for it, right?
At that time, about 70% of food is imported into Great Britain. Not great when you're an island going to war.
Yeah.
Very easy to starve out a country. So what they did was they had to ramp up that food production. They revived the Women's Land Army. They started recruiting. And so what we would do is we would actually be placed on all of the farms. We'd be doing anything from working with dairy, harvesting crops, livestock, all of these different things, every aspect of farming that you could think of. And we're working with these farmers on the land. There were about 200,000 women that served from 1939 through 1950 because after the war, there was still problems with having enough food. There was still rationing that continued. So they kept the Land Army through 1950. But a few of the lesser known things that I enjoy talking about is we talk about all of the food production. We talk about the livestock and the dairy and all of that. My personal, very strange passion is talking about the pest control. So we are making all of this food. We are making this headway so that we are not starved out of the war. But a main enemy here, rats.
Oh, okay.
Rats are a huge problem. The amount of rats is greater than the amount of the human population in Great Britain in 1940.
Wow.
So they actually had this whole section that was just dealing with pest control. So they called them these gangs of women that would go farm to farm to eradicate the rats. Yep, and that was their entire job with that. So
now the Women's Land Army. So let me make sure I understand this. And is this food for civilian consumption, or is this food for military consumption?
Both.
Both. That you're doing.
And we fall under the Ministry of Agriculture.
Okay, and then the 200,000 women that are involved, are they on what is their principal job related to that? I mean, they're doing all kinds of things, but they're out at these
at the farms. Yep.
Okay.
So when you enroll, you're enlisting. You're going to be doing 6 weeks of training.
Okay.
In all sorts of different types of farm work. And then you're going to be stationed at a farm. Now, you might be the only person helping on that farm. There might be 20 land girls with you doing that.
Okay.
So it really depends on the farm, what your job is. You're probably not going to be at a farm doing everything there. You're going to have more of a specialized, kind of specialized job within that.
And why did you, and I want to answer from both of you, because your compatriot over here has been very quiet. We're going to have her come out of there.
Yes.
We've got a coworker at the foundation, and we try to get her to say some words over there. So we're heading to you. But why are the two of you, what got you interested in doing this impression? Why are you doing this particular impression?
I love telling the stories that aren't really told. We talk about all of the military involvement, but I love kind of going into the mechanisms of what's keeping things going, like popping under the hood and seeing what else is going on underneath things. Because nobody really talks about the issues that they had with, I mean, they talk about rationing, but they don't talk about the fact that the Land Army kind of kept everything going through the duration and past the war. So I like being able to bring up those stories and talk about the other side of things.
I would 100% agree with that. That I like telling the stories that you don't hear too much of, that it's, you know, these women did all this hard, laborious work and they didn't get the full recognition that they rightfully deserved of making sure that there was food for the entire population of their country and all the countrymen that were fighting all over the world. And also, horse girl. So I, you know, so you know, not that we have horses here with us today or anything like that, but also horse girl. So I have a little bit of that farm affiliation, having worked with animals and whatnot. So a little bit of that.
Okay, all right, all right. And did the two of you ever meet any woman of the 200,000 that was in this group in World War II?
Yes, actually.
Oh wow. Okay. All right.
Yes. Yes. There was a woman that who would always go to Reading, and she was actually a war bride who came over after the war. But we loved talking to her.
That was the air show, right? Reading has a big air show there. So, and you got to meet somebody that was actually in there.
Yeah.
Wow. And you've got some literature. What? These are things that were. Here's the women's, and she's going to. She'll probably.
This is the cookbook.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of recipes in here that the women would use, and we were cooking our breakfast earlier with the recipe for corned beef hash that we had this morning for breakfast. That was out of that.
And for lunch, we're gonna do a toasted cheese, which is essentially grilled cheese, one of our favorites.
Okay. And this is somebody that actually had this. Did you buy this off of somewhere, or
you know
just create it?
It's actually the person who is doing the cooking at a different display right now because we ran out of fuel.
Yes.
It is hers. So I'm not sure if she bought the original and scanned it or if she made a reproduction of that.
And then this is the Land Girl manual, which is, you know, this one is a reproduction, but this is based off what the women were actually issued.
Manual for the volunteers.
Yep.
Wow.
So it shows how to, you know, what your uniform, you know, parts of, like on the back here, it shows what your uniform was, what your pieces were, how to, you know, regulation for different things.
And do you all have a website or someplace the viewers could go to learn any more, or no? Where do you go to learn more about this if you're not out here?
Actually,
you got to get here. That's what you got to do. All right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would say, I believe it's womenslandarmy.co.uk is kind of like our go-to spot.
Yes.
That's where there's a lot of original documents, a wealth of information.
Yes.
Okay, who knew? I didn't, and boy, I'm sure glad I stopped here. And we really appreciate you coming and participating in this for the Women's Land Army, a vital part of the Second World War on the home front in England that nobody knew about, including me. So go check it out. And thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. We're back out here at Eisenhower National Historic Site for World War II weekend. We're with Tom and Dewey. And we're in the tent for the naval war dogs of the Second World War. And Tom, I've got to admit, I know an awful lot about military history. I'm a Civil War historian by trade. I didn't know the Navy employed dogs in the Second World War. So tell us a little bit about this impression, what you're doing out here.
Yes, so a lot of people don't know that really there were dogs in World War II because, you know, it's one of those little bits of military history that people just don't know about or don't look at. The military, actually, each branch of the military used dogs during World War II, and they had three specific jobs. Sentry dogs or guard dogs, there were scout dogs, but there were also messenger dogs as well, where they would have messenger dog collars and everything and deliver messages. The Navy and Coast Guard used dogs for shore patrol, but also guarding installations. The Army attached them to different military police units, and you see some out on the front lines as well. The Marine Corps used them in combat all throughout the South Pacific, and there were dogs who were killed in combat. What's really interesting about this is that the military didn't have their own breeding program at the start of the war, so they didn't have any dogs to use at the beginning of the war and throughout the war. So they relied on the Dogs for Defense program. And citizens donated their dogs for military service. And they were looking for working breeds, like Dewey here, who's a shepherd mix.
Right.
They were looking for shepherds, Dobermans, pointers, boxers, really anything that was a good sporting or working breed. And they went to all different parts of the service. And it was with the understanding that the military would keep the dog for the duration of the war. But when the war was over, you could get your dog back. And for the 20,000 dogs that went into the service and served, the ones that survived, about 98% of them were able to go back to either their original families, or if the families didn't want them, the handlers who had them during wartime service could keep the dog.
Okay, so for the Navy, they used them at naval bases then, you're saying, around the perimeter? They had a perimeter dog?
Around the perimeter, but also on the shoreline, shores,
okay.
Doing shore patrol, and with the shore patrol Navy police, basically, they would utilize them as well.
And then would they train? Now I know later on in Vietnam they would have handlers train with them and then send them overseas. In World War II, how did they? Did they do the same thing?
So that happened as well. The handlers would train with the dogs, and they would both be treated as fresh recruits, and they would get to know each other, and the dogs and the handlers would be together for the duration of the war. And it's after World War II you see Dogs for Defense go away, because the military starts their own breeding program, and they start really looking at very specific breeds as to what they have to work with. So the dogs in Vietnam and everything, again, very specific, but they come from the military's own breeding program.
Now, unfortunately, from what little I know about it, but I know some about it, the dogs in Vietnam, many of them, when they went overseas there, were euthanized. They were not brought back.
Not really euthanized. They were considered military equipment at that point, and a lot of them were left behind for the South Vietnamese.
Yes.
And
how about in World War II though? These dogs they get returned.
They did get returned.
Okay.
So because again they were donated for the duration of the war. So they went back to either the original families or the handlers who had them during wartime.
And then we've got to ask you, Tom, what got you interested in this? Why are you interested in this?
So with the dog wise, I love dogs.
Yes.
Dewey's my personal dog.
Is he your dog?
He is.
Well, and he's a great dog.
And I have another dog with me too. So I volunteer raising service dogs for America's Vet Dogs and the Guide Dog Foundation. So that got me involved with that as well. That, and then my job, I work for the Naval History and Heritage Command. It's the Navy's history department. So everything just kind of came together for this program. And I knew about the Marine War Dogs, but I wanted to expand upon it and see what did the other branches utilize the dogs. So doing research, more dogs started popping up, and for the different branches as well. And it's one of those stories, again, the general public doesn't really know about dogs in World War II. And we've met so many folks here, when we get to tell them about the Dogs for Defense program and the dogs that served, the main comment that we always get is, I never knew about this. And hey, if they can walk away learning something new, makes me very happy.
Well, we want to make sure everybody does, and we want to make sure people come out. Now, by the time everybody sees this weekend will be over, but they got to get it on their calendar.
Yes, and for next year.
They need to pay attention to the Eisenhower National Historic Site, get on their calendar for next year, and you can come out and see it. And Tom, you mentioned to me, you've done this multiple years. This isn't the only year you've been here.
Yeah, I believe this is my third year here doing stuff with working dogs. And Dewey has been here all 3 years. This is Bond, the other dog that I have with me, his second year. And they'll keep coming out as long as people want to learn about it.
Well, we can't thank you and Dewey enough, and we caught them, folks, right while they were trying to eat their lunch out here.
Yes.
They gave that up. We ran them out of their lunch hour to come out here and talk for the Gettysburg Foundation video here for Eisenhower National Historic Site. So, Tom, thank you so much.
Yes, my pleasure.
We really appreciate it. We learned a lot today.
Yes.
Naval war dogs in the Second World War. Who would have known?
Yes.
Well, everyone, we sure hoped you had a wonderful time traveling with us by video here at World War II weekend at Eisenhower National Historic Site. Get it on your calendar for next year, 2025. Look in September when the dates are released, and come out here and learn a lot of World War II history at the Eisenhower National Historic Site. On behalf of the Gettysburg Foundation, I'm Wayne Motts, and once again, we want to thank Sarah Lewis behind the camera. And we appreciate all the support the viewers have for the foundation and for Gettysburg National Military Park and Eisenhower National Historic Site. Without you all, we couldn't be doing and helping with events just like this to help preserve and protect Gettysburg and Eisenhower National Historic Site and educate the public about their significance. That's a major part of our mission. So we appreciate it very much. We hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share all the videos, and thank you.